Welcome to the Adaptation Planning and Practices online training, brought to you by the Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science and USDA Northern Forest Climate Hub. This is step 1, define location, project, and timeframes. This is a training we have offered in person and online since 2016 for forestry-focused natural resources professionals who work in rural and urban areas. This training is supported by a team of instructors who specialize in climate adaptation. Please go to our website to learn more about our team at forestadaptation.org and niax.org. This training guides participants through the Adaptation Workbook, a resource created by and supported by the Northern Institute of Applied Climate Science and USDA Climate Hubs. The Adaptation Workbook is a process designed to help managers integrate climate considerations into natural resources planning. Each step is designed for custom inputs that relies on your expert judgment and evaluation. When completed, the Adaptation Workbook can provide a clear plan and project record that reflects each project's unique goals and values. Throughout this training, we will introduce each step of the process to you and work through them together. Use this training to learn the process and to think critically about each step. Afterwards, we hope you'll feel empowered to use these same steps for future projects and are willing to share them with colleagues to integrate into their work as well. Let's begin at step 1, define management goals and objectives and other project details. This is a critically important step that sets context for the entire plan. This step records fundamental information about the project area or property that will be used throughout the workbook process. Because it serves as a starting point for the subsequent steps, management goals and objectives should be as specific as possible. In many instances, this information will already be available as part of a management plan or other planning document. The key questions in this step are, where are you working? What are your management goals and objectives for this project area? The purpose of this training is to teach you how to develop an adaptation plan in a real-world setting. So if you haven't done so already, we suggest choosing a project that you are already familiar with. A real-world project that you are familiar with will allow you to be more efficient with your time and will provide much-needed background and context needed throughout the Adaptation Workbook learning process. I'm going to provide a more context on selecting the right size and complexity for this training, but let us know if you want to talk through this during a discussion group or a one-on-one meeting. Choosing a project for this training can be a daunting first step. Dialing in and refining the details of the project scope is incredibly important. It's a balance to find a project that is the right fit for the training and within your capacity to dedicate time to deliberately think through it. Using the Goldilocks graphic as a guide, we encourage participants to bring projects that have some complexity, but not so much that it's overwhelming. The trick is to select a project or a portion of a larger project that contains relatively few ecosystem types and a handful of objectives for each ecosystem. Your project can cover a larger area if the area is fairly homogeneous and not too complex. If you have a really complex ecosystem or project issue, you might need to work through those goals and objectives at a much smaller scale. If you are working at a very large scale, please contact us for additional assistance. After you've chosen a project, we ask that you spend time clearly articulating a few goals and objectives that describe the overall intention of management or conservation and stewardship within this project. Defining clear goals and objectives are essential and will make the other steps of the Adaptation Workbook much easier. To put it simply, goals are the big picture that set context for what we are trying to do at the project location. Management goals are broad, general statements and are usually not quantifiable. They express a desired state or process to be achieved and may include desired future ecosystem conditions, habitat characteristics, forest products, or other services. Goals are often not attainable in the short term, and they provide the vision and context for more specific objectives. So, if goals are the big picture or what you're trying to achieve, then objectives are the precise steps to be taken to achieve those goals. Think of them as tiers under each goal that explain specifically how we're going to achieve our stated goals. You may be able to draw goals and objectives directly from existing management plans or documents. It's important to note that climate change does not need to be explicitly mentioned in these. We need to define the overall big picture intention for management or conservation and understand the plans you may already have to achieve a desired vision first. We're going to then apply a climate adaptation filter to your project throughout the training. So you don't need to worry about including climate change now in your goals and objectives. In fact, it's better if you don't. On this slide, you can see some examples. For instance, a goal to reduce invasive species cover with a related objective to reduce area covered by invasive buckthorn from 10% to no more than 5% is shown on the bottom with a time frame of 10 years. In this example, you can see how the goals are the big picture vision, while the objectives provide more clarity and details on how to achieve, and again, are also time bound. One trick you can use is to use this acronym, SMART. SMART is defined as specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. This SMART methodology can be a good way to check your objectives to ensure you are covering all of your bases. Think about your goals and objectives through this lens, and it will help you critically evaluate if you're providing enough information. Let's look at some examples of SMART objectives and goals that they may be associated with. So in this example, goals and objectives are shown for both a recreation theme and for timber. Example for a goal within the recreation topic is to minimize impacts to recreation infrastructure. The associated objective is more specific, which is to maintain routine trail monitoring in spring, summer, and fall seasons to minimize major maintenance work over the next 10 years. Similarly, within the timber topic, the goal is to maintain and increase acres of oak-dominated habitat, and the related objective is to increase acres of oak habitat from a small acreage to a much larger acreage over the next 60 years. Those were the big concepts for step one. So now let's step through the specific questions and details that you will need in order to document that thinking in this step. As you start to define your location and project details, think about your project's big topics or units as they're defined in the Adaptation Workbook. What are the major attributes of your project area? Consider segmenting the project into these topics or units. That can be forest type groups, habitats, and key features of the site, like infrastructure or cultural sites. Defining these special areas will create space for discrete assessment of climate vulnerabilities and adaptation actions. When defining units within your project, try to strike a balance, selecting units that adequately describe your project area without going overboard. Depending on the overall size of your property, consider focusing on one or two different topics for this training. But if your project is on the smaller side, it may feel doable to include all relevant management units. Remember, after the training, you can always go back to evaluate more areas or topics because this is an iterative process. For the purposes of this training, you will or have already submitted a project. Please refine your initial thinking. Use existing goals listed in your management conservation project plans. There is no need to recreate the wheel. Using existing goals encourages planning for a long vision for the project area. So to that end, please do not include climate change in your goals or objectives. Think of the big picture of what you're trying to achieve. Reflect on the major topic areas and assign at least one goal for each management topic. We suggest no more than 4 goals for each topic area. When refining your objectives, try to be as specific as possible, linking at least one objective to one goal. Try to incorporate the SMART acronym: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Lastly, take a look at your project plan and refine to no more than 12 objectives. So anywhere between 3 to 12 objectives is adequate and will ensure you can complete the training. And that concludes description of step 1 of the adaptation workbook for the adaptation planning and practices training. Please contact us for more information.